Devlog September 2021. This is the update where I have finally fixed all of the AI and enemies. So I unfortunately didn't get all of my work done this month. I kind of got burned out, so I had like 2 weeks where I didn't do anything. So what I've done and not done is all the enemy attacks are now redone in C++. They no longer work in blueprints, which is amazing. They're now sort of modular, and I can set them up much faster and much quicker than before. I'll explain that later as short as I can, because the last time it went way too long, so I try and keep it short this time. One thing I try to do and kind of got burned out is clothing. Clothing and armor for the enemies is something I wanted to do. So I wanted to get all the enemies textured and clothed by this month, but I kind of got tired of it. And I'm just clothing and armor is still something I'm not good at in 3D modeling. I just don't know. Like enemies, I'm or creatures is something I've gotten really good at. Weapons is something I've gotten pretty good at. Art surface modeling is something I've improved a lot the last month and the month actually the month before. But clothing is something that I kind of struggle with. So I kind of did the helmet and the armor. Then I got to the garb and like especially this stuff like this stuff of clothing. I'm just terrible at because it just never looks good. So I really need to like focus a month on making clothing and getting good at that. But yeah, so I got kind of like tired of it. So most of the enemies are just naked right now. But yeah, um, I have textured one of the creatures, which looks pretty decent. It's kind of like a pretty rapid texture job, but it gives me an idea of how much of an improvement it is over the old models. It's pretty big. I've also finally decided to bake normals, which is yeah, it looks way better. The creatures look way better with baked normals. So if I go to my meshes, um, here textures. So I now actually have like proper baked normals, which is just great. But yeah, clothing and everything textured properly is going to be next month. But at least I got all the enemies working again. So the way enemy attacks now work is they no longer work from inside the blueprint. All of what's still in the blueprint is visual, so animation calls. That's the only thing that's now done in blueprints. All of the logic is now done in C++. So I have split my AI. So I kind of very quickly realized that my AI state machine was not suitable for attacks. So I have my old AI state machine that I explained like 3-4 months ago. And I still have those AI, but I have removed the attack logic from that AI component. And this AI component is now exclusively meant um, for movement. So this AI module, the AI state machine module, basically decides how an enemy moves. So this is a movement. This is the AI movement. The AI attack logic for both conditions and the performance of the attack is now done via the AI attack logic. And then I also have a b-enable components boolean here because if I don't have anything here, this should be off, otherwise the game crashes. Let's see. So I have my entity attack base here. Let's see if I can find the header. I'll talk about the whole code base in this video as well. Go to Sky interface. There. Okay. SK entity attack base. So in entity attack base, there is a struct which does both conditions and variables for attacks. So, and it also keeps track of if the attacks on cooldown, if it's valid burst, whatever. So right here, this is the attack condition. So the chance of an attack. So this will be done every 100 milliseconds. The AI logic runs, so it will check for attack chance. So what I found is that it's like 1.5. That's like 1.5 would be like a relatively occasional attack. 1.5 would be like it pretty much attacks always, and 1.0 is just 100% of the time. So if the conditions are right, then it will attack. So then there's distance minimal, distance max, the maximum pitch angle for which an attack is valid, the maximum yaw angle for which an attack is valid, and that's it. And there is the timing, the duration, how long does an attack last? So how long does the attack last? How long does it track the player with aiming? How long is the wind up? So how long does the animation wind up before the attack comes out? And then there is duration cooldown. And that's just how long the attack needs to cool down before it can be performed again. Then there is attack style. So attack style is an enumeration. So there are 4 common attacks that are pre-programmed and are basically, I don't have to write any logic if I want to use a basic. So for example, if I want an enemy that does a melee strike, I can just tell the entity attack use melee strike. It will then read variables from the attack variables, and I don't have to write any additional code. It's just pre-coded. So I don't, if I have like 20 melee enemies, I don't have to make 20 separate melee attacks. I can just tell it use the melee strike attack logic. So I have 4 common attack logics. Maybe I'll expand this if I find that there's this attack that multiple enemies use, and I now have this duplicate code. I should just make another attack style. And then I can just add another attack style to here. And it will just then be added to the entity attack base. So the 4 common ones are melee strike, a melee AoE, area of effect, a projectile attack, a hit scan attack, which I actually is currently empty, but I have some ideas for hit scan attack, but currently hit scan attack is not used. And if I have an enemy that has an attack that does not fall within one of these 4 base attack styles, I will have a special attack style that will use custom code. So the way that works is in my entity attack base, I have attack, hit scan, attack, projectile. So I can just show projectile, peak prediction. So this is the logic for an attack that is a projectile attack, which I'm not going to explain, but that's just how it works. And attack special will be here. So if attack special is called, it will go to attack special logic, which is currently empty. I have nothing in attack special. That's because attack special will be decided by the entity itself. So if I go to which one has a special attack, so I know the Warlock has 2 special attacks. So here in the Warlock, I have attack special, which is then overwritten. So I can unpick the definition. IntelliSense is too slow. I'm just gonna do it manually. There we go. Attack special, attack special. So yeah, here's attack special. So if it goes to attack special, it then goes to the attack index. So which index the attack is. So if it's attack 1, it's a start projectile explosion, and 3 is a start explosion field. That's like 2 different attacks. In every entity, I have my register attacks, which gets called during the construction of the component, which basically just makes, so the Warlock has 4 attacks. So actually I should take a more basic enemy. So let's take the Warrior. I will showcase the Warrior first, since that's the most basic bitch enemy there is. So the Warrior has a melee strike. So it has a melee strike. It just adds all of the variables it needs for the melee strike, and then it adds it to the entity attacks array. So the entity attack array. For the entity attack array, then it has a throw firebolt, just like the imps from Doom. It just throws a firebolt. So that would be a projectile. And so I will just get the variables and put it in entity attacks. And lastly, I have a fire breath, which is a special attack. So that attack can't use the code for any of the other 4. So it has to run on custom code. So that's just fire breath and then add it to the entity attack array. And that would be entity attack 2. So based on the order in which I load these attacks, that will be their index. So melee strike will have attack index 1, 0, because we start at 0 in programming. Unless you're using one of those dumb scripting languages, in which case shame on you. Then there is throw firebolt, which is attack on 1. And then there is fire breath, which has attack 2. Attack special gets called here. So for 2, so attack 2, or index 2, I need a special attack logic. So switch on attack index, go to attack fire breath start, and then do the fire breath logic. So this is just custom logic that runs. That's just based on the enemy itself. So this has its own attack special, which is overwritten from the base attack. So let's just showcase it then. This is a caster, go away. Blueprints, entities, units, warrior. The only one that has some clothing. There we go. That's a firebolt. Oh, fire breath. Okay. Another fire. Yeah. And there's the melee strike. Oh yeah, and I have fixed the fire particles. They no longer crash the game. Yay. Still no sound on the enemies. That's something I still need to do. But yeah. If you see like hitches and stuff, that's just because I've just launched the game, the Unreal Engine. And the Unreal Engine always needs to like load stuff. But once it's loaded, it runs perfectly smooth. It's just always that first load that hitches. It's one of the most infamous things about Unreal, and there's just nothing I can really do about it. I think it's gonna take forever with the pistol. But yeah, that's just the enemy. Another thing that I fixed since the previous first of the attacks, and that's finally fixed as well, is that so the way enemy attack conditions used to be checked is it always used to check attack 0 first. So it checked attack 0, then it would check attack 1, and then it would check attack it would go in order. The problem is because it would go in order every single time, attacks that were higher on the index, so not lower on the index, I should say. So the lower the index, the more chance there was to have that attack, and that attack would also often override attacks that had a higher index. So I fixed that by basically it now just takes a random start index, and it will then just it will start on a random attack, and it will check if that attack is valid. So now in the old version of the code, it was very common for enemies to just spam the attack that was the highest on the index, because that would just often happen. But it will now actually just take a random attack, and then it will just go randomly through the array. So now attacks are properly mixed up and switched up. That's good. I guess I'll just showcase all the enemies in one go. So that's the warrior. That's been fixed. The caster. So the caster has been changed. The caster used to only have one attack. That was a very slow... yeah, I'll just show. The enemy now... the caster used to only have one ranged attack. It now has like 3. Yeah, it has 3. So it has that fast throw, which it will... Okay, so that's a very... Okay, so this is a new projectile pattern that I've made, which is a sinus pattern. But yeah, so that's one attack. So if you're far away, the enemy will do that discus throw, so very fast. If you get closer, it will do one of the other 2 attacks. So do one of those, which is a sinus throw, that's how I call it, because it goes around like a sinus. And then there is the spray. That used to be the only attack. But yeah. Oh, and the reason why I shoot the enemies will guarantee an attack if you shoot them. They will retaliate. So if I don't shoot them, the attack... Oh, I'm getting very unlucky now because he is attacking very... Yeah, right. So the AI will not attack. It will... Okay. If the AI is not in retaliation mode, it will use the attack chance. So it will take the attack chance of its attacks, and it will then... Oh, shit. And it will then base their decision to make an attack on that attack chance. If it's in retaliation mode, it will always attack. So basically, attack chance will go to 100. And it will then just take the attack that first gets checked that has valid conditions. So then we have the hunter. Hunter used to... Okay, so the hunter has... I'll just show it. The hunter also has now a alternative fire mode with his bow. So it now does this triple shot. So the reason why there is that massive cone effect on it is just... This is just temporary, but I want to make it so that all projectiles can be easily spotted and seen, so you can dodge them. That's why. That's why they are so... But obviously this is an unfinished effect. But I can't, like, if I don't put that effect on it, the arrow is very hard to see. But with the effect, I mean, you can't miss them. They just need a better effect that actually looks a lot more natural. So yeah, it has that triple attack and it just has that fast attack. And then it also has a knife throw. He's not going to be a dickhead about it. There's the knife throw. Oh, and I think he also has a melee strike. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, he also has a melee strike, which you should really never get hit by. There are two enemies that have... The caster also has a melee strike, but honestly, I would be amazed if anybody ever dies to the melee strike. Okay, then there's the Sentinel. This is probably the most interesting change I've made. So the Sentinel used to be a really slow enemy with a shield, and it still has the shield. It's just in a different way. It also now has a ranged attack. So the Sentinel has two attacks. So it has that slash, which is probably one of the coolest animations I've made, and it just has a basic very long range melee strike. And it's also a lot faster. It used to be extremely slow. The melee hitbox is a bit oversized, and I probably need to tone that down a bit. But that's just balancing. That's something I can do later. So yeah, that's such a cool animation. Okay, and there's the shield. So the shield is now a projection, and he actually throws it. So yeah. But the way it's interesting is the AI... The attack chance of the shield is 0. There is 0 chance that he will use the shield unless you've hit him. So if you hit him, he will raise the shield. And you can pop it. You can break the shield and it will actually damage him. There is currently no damage explosion effect. That's something I... Die. That's something I need to... Effects are something I just need to fix. Right now, many particle effects for the enemies are currently unfinished. But yeah, that just adds a very interesting tactical opportunity to the player. So as long as you don't shoot or damage him, he will not raise the shield. However, if you want to, you could force him to raise the shield and then pop the shield if he's nearby other enemies and then basically use the shield against him. Which is very funny. But yeah. It's a lot more fun of an enemy to fight now, because the old enemy Sentinel was honestly shit. I mean, you could kill him very easily with explosives, but it was just such a boring enemy. He just walks slowly at you with a raised shield. But now there is just, yeah, it's better. Way better. So that's all of the, basic enemies. Then there are the big ones. So the Fury doesn't really have any change. I want to add another additional attack to the Fury, but I've just not come up with anything. But so right now, CG still just throws basic fireballs. There's not really much to do. There is one change I've made to the Flyer AI. And that's that the Flyer AI now tries to stay in front of you. So the enemy used to be really annoying because they used to fly circles around you. But I've changed the flyer AI, so the flyer AI is now a lot more stable, so a lot more easier to hit. There we go. Also, she has less health, but yeah, this entity changed the least. So there's the least amount of changes to the Fury. The only thing I do, again, just like all the other enemies, he needs clothes and textures. But yeah, I just don't want the Fury to be too complex because flying enemies are always to some degree annoying. So I kind of want to keep it as simple as possible, so you don't have to spend too much attention. But yeah, the flying is now a lot less erratic and a lot more stable. So that's just one change. Yeah, the least changes to this enemy. Then there's the Minotaur, which also has pretty much no changes other than, again, updated animations. All enemies now have their animations updated, and they use the. So if I go to the Fury, they now all use like my own made animation nodes, so velocity lean nodes. They now use look solver, so they can actually look at you. That's something they now use. But yeah. Same with the demon here. It uses the this is very easy for me to set up. I no longer have to spend a lot of time with animations. All I need to do is like make the animations. And I also need a lot less animation. I used to need like multiple variants of certain animations, and now this is just all automated and procedural, but that's something I explained last month. But yeah. Minotaur. Minotaur has also no changes. It has the exact same did I put him? Oh, okay. I think yeah. Sometimes the navigation node doesn't properly update. There we go. So yeah. Currently, I mean, nothing much to say. It's just a basic melee enemy that rushes you. Like, just stay away from him. So obviously a Minotaur alone is not a threat. Like, I can endlessly dodge him. The reason why this is an important enemy is I basically will use him to flush out players. So if players are... This is basically to prevent players from standing still. You can't stand still with this guy around. You have to keep moving. So you can't like find a camping spot and like take enemies out from like a corner or something, because this guy will... Oh, and that attack, if you get hit by that stomp and you're like on a ledge or something, you will go off the ledge and you will not survive. So yeah. I mean, it's always important to have a good melee enemy that can just flush enemies out of like comfortable positions and keep you on the move. That's basically his whole point. But you should never die to him if you're like in a 1v1. He's not meant to deal damage, he's meant to just annoy you and keep you on your feet. So yeah. Then there is probably the most interesting enemy, which is the Warlock, which I don't think I've ever shown the Warlock like rework. Alright, Warlock, where are you? Demonic creatures, Warlock. So the Warlock has also been updated. The Warlock has had a massive update. His old attacks were just too stupid, and his attacks are now a lot more simple but more effective. So he has two types of attacks. He either throws projectiles or he spawns damaged pillars out of the ground. Those pillars currently don't have an effect, but it will be pretty obvious what they do. So that's just his basic attack. And that's his project. Okay, so if you know the arch file from Doom, you know what that attack is. He will project a damage sphere, a damage pillar under you, and you basically have to break line of sight in order to... Okay, so, and that's his big attack. Yeah, that's pretty devastating. Okay, so he's projecting, so I should now break line of... Oh, I want to showcase that. He also has one more attack, which he has not yet done. Which is an attack where he basically spawns tons of pillars, but he doesn't like aim them. So if you could please, yeah, that's a ET post. Okay. If I go to my animation graph, you can see that his knees are like pointing inwards for some reason. I don't know why that is. I need to fix that. But yeah, the Warlock currently has a bit buggy animations. He also occasionally T-poses. I don't know why. I need to fix that. So if I go to this one, you can actually see that he doesn't have his knees inward. He should actually have his knees outward. But yeah, I don't know why that is wrong. But yeah. Let's see if I can still get the Warlock to do that 4th attack. The Warlock also used to have 1000 health. I have no idea why I ever made that decision, and I've dropped it down to 500. So that's the projectile. So there I broke line of sight, and he missed his attack. Can you please do the final attack? Yeah, there it is. Alright. And that's the final attack, and then he just spawns those. Hey, I got hit by one. Yeah. And that's basically just his final attack. So the Warlock used to have like 1000 health. It used to be a nightmare to bring down. And now it's just 500, which makes sense because this is a very, unlike the Minotaur is not very dangerous, just annoying. And this enemy is very dangerous. So it makes sense to have dangerous enemies have less health, because then you give players a tactical decision by. So if I take a Minotaur, so a Minotaur has 650 health. So if you are faced with a Minotaur and a Warlock, you can make the decision to kill the Warlock first because he has less health and he is more dangerous. So you can try and avoid the Minotaur and then kill him first. Or what you can do is take the easier target, the Minotaur who is going to rush forward, and try and dodge the Warlock. Since fighting the Minotaur is less risky, but you still have to deal with the Warlock. It's just the enemies are just a lot more fun to fight than before. That's just what I'm trying to say. There is a lot more interest now. And that is all of the enemies done. So yeah. I mean, not all of the enemies, all of the like demon enemies. There are still, of course, like the trooper and the other enemies, but those are not in the scope of this video. New animations. Oh yeah, wall jump and sliding. All right, let's quickly show that. So I've added sliding as a. I didn't. So last time my recording stopped abruptly for some reason, and I don't think sliding explanation was in it. But basically, very short. I've added sliding. This was last month added as basically as a dodge, and it's. I mean, you've seen me use it against the enemies, and it's very fun. So one of probably the best examples of an enemy is the Sentinel. So if we just quickly grab a Sentinel. Oh, enemies now also properly aim for your upper body. There used to be only 2 bone identifiers for the AI. That was the impulse bone, which will be your main bone, which for all enemies is basically the hips, because that's the root of the model. And then or the head. So that would be the aim bone, and that would be, so if they couldn't see your hips, they would aim for your head. The problem is they would basically always aim for your crotch, which was a bit weird, and it also meant that they often aimed too low. So I've added a 3rd bone identifier, so now the AI will properly aim for your upper body instead of your crotch. So if it just quickly does an attack, I can slide under it. That's just... That works for most attacks, but obviously if I were to like slide before, like if he would do the attack, yeah, he would adjust his aim. So it's a timed thing. So you have to time your slides correctly in order to dodge projectiles. But if you slide too soon, the AI will compensate and it will just hit you. But yeah, it's very fun to do. And this is, yeah. But these will be the final movements things I will add. I don't want too much movement systems because then it just gets bloated, and I have seen plenty of games. Not gonna go name, but if you know your first-person shooters, you know there is a game recently released that had just way too many systems attached to it. That just brought the game down massively. So yeah. Another thing that I wanted to add, and again, the final movement thing that I will add is a wall jump. So you can now jump on walls. Which, right now, wall jumping is very difficult. Like, I can do it because I've obviously practiced a lot, and I know in and out how source movement works, because I have programmed source movement in this game. But yeah, like most wall jumps in games will like attach you to the wall, and then you can like pause and like look where you go, and then you can like you have a lot of control, but it's very slow. This has a bit less I mean, you still have a lot of control. It is just you need to be really practiced with it. But yeah, I think I'll just keep it this way, but I won't do like really complex. I won't make it so that you have to do really complex wall jumps in order to get to places, because I already know that the vast majority of people who are gonna play my game are gonna struggle with the way wall jumping works. I love the way wall jumping works because I think it's really cool. You can do a lot with it, and you have a lot of control over where you're gonna go if you are practiced with it. Yeah, I'm a big fan of it. So yeah. Here I like have a basic example of like how you could use wall jump. So wall jump here to get to the other side. Oh yeah. Again, it's pretty tough. If you so obviously I don't want people to use wall jump in order to escape like from like long heights. So if your negative velocity reaches a certain threshold, you can no longer wall jump. So that's just what happened there. So you need to make sure you always like are in an upward trajectory when you hit the wall jump. If you go too far down, it won't work. And again, that's to prevent people from like saving themselves from long falls. Yeah, I'll never add a double jump. Like double jump is something I will never add. I never liked double jumps anyway, but also because double jumps are just a nightmare for level design, because again they allow people to like just go really far down and then just jump just before they hit the bottom and then save themselves from death. So yeah, that's fun. So what do I okay, I need to do one. So one thing you can't do with wall jumping as well is you can't wall jump off the same angle multiple times in a row. So I can't like chain wall jumps against the sides of these crates because they're all the same angle. Whereas I can jump between these and these crates because they're on a different angle. I can't remember what exactly the sweet spot is I've chosen for angle. But for example, this would work. So a 45-degree angle like this would work. So jump, 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 endpoint. But yeah, but you can't, again, if I try to chain multiple jumps together, okay, I hit the other side here. But if I try to hit there, it wouldn't work. But yeah, that's just that. That's wall jumping. Very fun. Okay, discuss the code base. So yeah, I'm pretty much done with I'm not gonna explain entity spawnables. Yeah, I'm not gonna explain that. I'm pretty much done with like the code base, and the code base is pretty good. I'd give it a 7. I'd give it a solid 7. I thought about it for very long, not very long, but I would give it a 7. It's pretty good. It's a pretty good code base to start with. There is one class here that's in the wrong folder that I need. This is the entity attack, which obviously needs to be in Sky components, but yeah. I'm very happy with the code base. It has gotten out of it. Like I would have never imagined that I would have ended with this much code when I first started reworking stuff in C++. But in the end, I'm pretty happy with it. So the reason why I give it a 7 is it's pretty good in terms of like the way classes are separated. There is actually no communication between classes that I would not want to communicate. Everything is done via interfaces, and it just works beautifully. The reason why I give it a 7 is because a lot of my, especially earlier code, is not that well made. For example, I mean, one thing that I've done wrong is use Euler rotations instead of quaternions. So as I explained, I think in last month's video, I've come to love quaternions instead of Euler rotations. So if I were to like remake a lot of the code, I would replace all of the Euler rotations with quaternion rotations. That's something I would change. There another thing that I would change is in pawn. I have put way too much code in pawn. I really, some code really needs to be like split into actor components. So for example, the key cards, which are like player specific, like the AI will never use key cards. The AI will never ever use key cards. Only the player uses key cards. So what I really should have done is I should have made a key card component, or just or actually even better, a player component, and put these variables and the code surrounding these variables in a actor component, and it basically is called the player component, and just put it on, attach it to the pawn. That would have been better. Same with the weapon structs, the weapon save data structs. Like demons don't use ammo. They don't use ammo, but they still have these variables and the surrounding code. So what I should have done is I should have made a ammo or a weapon component and added that weapon component to the pawn. So like weapon variable component, and just put that in the component, and then it would no longer be part of pawn.high. But yeah, like this is so integral to the workings of the weapons that it would be too much effort to change it. Like not super, like it's not like the entire game would break. Like I have prevented for the most part spaghetti. I have not suffered any spaghetti goat problems during all of the writing of the code, because everything is properly separated and segregated, and it's just nothing like interferes with each other, which is good. There are just many minor things that could be better. And there is also a lot of things that could be more modular, more open to expansion. That's probably the one thing just I have not done well, is there are so many things that are just not really open to expansion. And that's why I'm giving it a 7 and not like an 8, a 9, or a 10. The best example of this is SK Weapon. SK Weapon is pretty good. It's pretty well made. With the only exception is that it's not modular and it's not very easily expandable. It works very well. This is something I've done pretty well, but it's not open for expansion. That's kind of like the one problem. I could have like made this a bit more modular and a bit more open for expansion, but it's not. So yeah. But overall, the code base is pretty good. Again, just minor improvement here and there, but yeah. Blueprint virtual machine. So I've also learned how the blueprints work. So the way it basically works is when Unreal basically runs a virtual machine overhead of the C++, and that virtual machine handles all of this code, which is not efficient. So I have actually started, so with enemy attacks, for example, I've already started calling cosmetic stuff in C++. And if I ever get to make another game after this, I will make my game fully in C++. But yeah, I now know how blueprints like work. And you really don't want any calls to the... So I have very limited amount of calls that are made to the blueprint virtual machine. But yeah, Phoenix does too many attacks, clothing molly, and that's it. That's done. Yeah. Next month I will probably have all the enemies done, and I will probably also start with audio. This year, I mean, the demo is delayed. That's for sure. I mean, I could have released a demo. I 100% could have released a demo this month if I just stuck with the old code base and not... If I didn't do the C++ rework, I would have been done by now. But the C++ rework, the model reworks, everything has been... Like, this is such a massive improvement over the old model. I don't know if I still have the old model. Probably not. If I go to my Blender, I'm pretty sure I don't have the old model. But let's just see. No, I still have it. Blender. That's the female model, which I don't have a female Russian model in the rework. I'll probably make one, femdem, demon. So this is the old model. Terrible. Absolutely terrible. And this is a new model. Infinitely better. Yeah, I don't know if I'm gonna make a female version. The reason why I made a female version of the old is because I have 4 of them. There are 4, and so the warrior, the caster, the sentinel, and the hunter. The reason why I made a female version was just for visual variety, but I'm not sure if I'm gonna do that. Maybe I will, maybe I don't. I don't know. It's gonna be a coin flip. But yeah. But yeah, I'm very happy with the rework, and I mean it's just gonna be next year then. It's better to take your time. Like that's just the thing. It's better that I now just take my time, make a better game, because first impression is everything. I just need to make a better game. And that's just what I'm doing. It's the rework has been going very well. I'm very happy with the results, and yeah. This audio. So if I have to make a time frame in my head, it's now. So next month we'll be finishing the enemies with, and then starting with audio. Then November will probably also be audio, and then finishing touches too. The levels are done. Levels are being, and those are not going to be reworked. Only like get the new enemies in, obviously. Oh, and the new textures that I still need to make. So then retexturing. Probably January is demo time. I think January is the new target deadline for the demo. But honestly, it's done when it's done. I'm not going to use a hard deadline.